fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No, no. So fuck off. I'm busy. Bye-bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't cry. The fucking machine is out of order. So fuck yourself and save a quarter.
What do you call someone who loves going to work after the holidays? Retired. And you're listening to an all-new episode of No Fucks Left.
Sorry, don't cry. Don't cry.
Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. Salutations. Welcome. Welcome to my podcast. So glad you're here. In case you didn't know, you're listening to No Fucks Left with Landyn Shaw, and that's me. And I'm so glad you're here. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had a great New Year. I know it was kind of a funky one. We start off the year, unfortunately, with tragedies, which seem to kind of sadly be somewhat of the norm, I guess. Each year, it just seems like I'm just waiting, to hear what the first big news story is going to be, knowing that it most likely is not going to be good. And that's not fun. And so that's why I now just stay home. And I'm good with that. As a matter of fact, New Year's Day is my anniversary. The professor and I celebrated 18 years of marriage. And it was the greatest anniversary ever because it was our first anniversary with me actually being me, my authentic self. So it was really special for me, and we had a great time. We purchased Wicked already, of course, and we've already watched that, plus all the special features. So that was a lot of fun. And we just had a great anniversary. It was fantastic. And this whole holiday break has been quite wonderful, really. And so what I wanted to do with this episode, I thought of many different things. And finally, it just kind of seemed like, you know what, just stick to what I know. And that's just being real and kind of celebrating all that this podcast is and just all the cool experiences already that have come from all of this. And so what I'd like to do is after my monologue, I'm going to be playing some of the best clips so far of 2024, and we started in November. So but I'm just going to play my favorite clips from each of the interviews that I've done so far, because I've already been blessed with being able to do some amazing interviews, and I have so many already lined up. And I'll tell you that this has been the biggest thrill to come from all of this, is the ability to talk to these artists that in some cases I've, admired and have looked to for inspiration and looked at as an artist that I revere, in some cases since I got into this business or even before. And so to be able to talk to these people, if you get the sense that I'm, in awe at what I get to do right now, it's because I am. It's legit. I'm talking to amazing people. And so I just wanted to kind of share the joy of that in a kind of truncated New Year's version, and just kind of play a little clip from each of those interviews. And then I've also done a little special thing that I'll tell you about when I introduce all of that in the second part of this. I did want to say that AJ is going to be taking a break from the show for a while, and I'm very, very sad to see that. But I wish him truly all the best. And so we're not going to have a hot takes this week. We're trying to work things out to where I can still, use him to do a segment, be it hot takes or something like that. And we're just trying to make it work, obviously, for his schedule. For me, since I'm a freelancer, I have a lot of opportunities to do things like this, and that doesn't always mesh with everyone else. And so I loved that he was a part of this and a part of starting off this entire enterprise. And I'll never be able to thank him enough for all of that. So, and he'll definitely be a part of this show. There's no way we're letting him go. There's no way. So what I wanted to do before I got into my monologue is someone had suggested, and of course it makes sense. And if you guys give us suggestions that make sense, there's no ego here. I am going to do it. And so someone said, hey, why don't you start the show with the word of the day? That way you have more opportunities to kind of react to the word and, have fun and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So before I get to any more of the show, can I get that theme song again, please? I love it. So yes, there it is.
What's the word? The word of the
Excellent.
day.
Yeah.
What's the word? What will
And by the way, again, to those of you that have sent us your comments, and several of you have brought up specifically the theme songs, thank you. That is something that I work very hard on, and I also love, and it tickles me every time. So thank you for that. So today, our word of the day, and I think this is just perfect to kind of go with that idea of New Year's, is retrospective. Retrospective. Most of us want to look forward, which we're definitely doing, but I also think, especially for myself, this year has been such an amazing year, truly. There's been some downs, but there's been a lot of ups. And so I'm going to kind of start with the retrospective. And I just thought it was a great word. So I wanted to share that. So that's our word of the day. Anytime you hear retrospective, you know what to do. Laugh, sing, dance, start yelling, do whatever. And, sharing the love of this community and our No Fucks Left community. And chances are, if you're at the gym or you're somewhere else and you see someone else start yelling and singing and dancing every once in a while, there's a pretty damn good chance that they're listening to No Fucks Left too. So, hey, there's nothing can be weird when there's multiple people doing it, right? So let's take a chance. Let's go into this next year just taking some risks, fun risks, and let's grow this amazing community and this amazing show, because I am loving it. So retrospective is the word of the day.
Celebrate the new year. Live without any fear. Keep hope alive in 2025. Let's hope we all survive. Kiss goodbye to 2024. We won't see her no more. That car crash is in the past. Let's hope this won't be our last. Old Lang Syne is just fine, to make it clear. I want to wish you a happy new year.
So, speaking of retrospective, what I wanted to do was kind of just, for myself, take a look back at this year and kind of the highlights. And because I'm trying to live as authentically as possible, I thought I would kind of share that retrospective look. I was going to kind of latch on to a couple of the trends I saw and, post kind of a year highlight reel or whatever on social media. But then I thought, you know what? No, I'm a talker, as we all know. And so I kind of wanted to talk it out. And it's funny because I've been thinking about this podcast and why I had this pull and this desire to do this. And I think, subconsciously, a lot of it is because I want to have kind of just a journal that I can definitely go back to in some way, shape, or form, that I guess can never necessarily be destroyed, if you will, of this entire journey and this huge step, because I always thought it was a big deal, obviously. But as I keep talking to more people and hearing from more people, I'm beginning to realize and understand even more how big of a deal this is, in a good way, like in a huge way. It's life-changing, and Lord knows it's changed my life in many, many ways, and will continue to do so. And that's exciting. I can't deny it. It's very exciting to be my age and to feel, young again, and to feel hopeful and energetic, and feel like, I'm not halfway done. I'm actually just beginning. And it's not a midlife crisis, I promise you, obviously, because I have been experiencing this my entire life. And as we know, I've tried many times to do this, and it's just, the universe was finally ready for me to do it this time. And I'm so, so very glad. So what I'd like to do is just kind of look back and do a retrospective and just kind of put things in perspective. And then share a little bit about what I hope the future will bring. And then we'll jump to that other segment. So it's interesting because even when I was kind of mapping it out, it's crazy how at the beginning of what was, the end of 2023, but the beginning of this huge step for me, I was doing a show at a theater in Illinois, $1 Million Quartet Christmas, and it was an amazing production, and I was so, so happy to be a part of that. It was working at a theater that I had wanted to work for a very, very long time. And I had known this company coming up, as a young actor and such. And so it was a thrill. And so that was December. And in December of 2023, I started officially doing HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and starting my medical transformation. And so no one at that production or at that theater knew at all, not one bit. And I was really excited, and I was at a good place in my life in that, I was finally working and I was making this huge step. And then I didn't know, but like by January, February of 2024, I suddenly was like healthier than I'd ever been. Like I had already by that point dropped like 20 pounds. I just felt a change like within months already of just, my emotions seemed to be way better, and my sense of reason and just how I interacted with people already. Like I was definitely seeing that instantly. And it was so amazing, especially starting a new year like that. So then we get to like March 2023. By this point, I've lost 30 pounds. I'm feeling amazing. I have more energy. I have more pep in my step. I have more hope, and things are just really, really looking up for me, in terms of just my outlook on life. Up until this point, and I think I've shared this before, coming out of the pandemic, which was just absolutely horrible for us all, but especially those of us in the entertainment industry, to then deal with the kind of repercussions of that, and just us getting our footing and stuff. It was not smooth by any stretch at all. And, many of us, all of us, I think in some way are still paying the price for that. So, you have that. And then, like I've shared, I then lost my dad within a year and a half, 2 years of kind of coming out of that pandemic. So then that set me back even. So, I had put on weight. I did not celebrate, Thanksgiving and Christmas that year after immediately right after my dad passed. I mourned hard. And so for me to notice that suddenly I have this, optimism and this hope and this sense of purpose again was huge for me. And it did not go unnoticed that it was coinciding with the fact that I'm, well on my way of finally having this authentic life. All the while, by the way, during all of this, I'm also starting to work heavily on my memoir. I had been writing up to that point, I had been writing a book at the urging of a friend of mine who is a publisher, and I'll talk more about her down the road. But I was writing one book, and then I started this transformation, and she obviously didn't know at the time, as this was someone who I kind of basically grew up with. And so I was finding it hard to write come like December, January, February. And so finally I kind of was like, you know what? I have to change my book. Like I've been working on this other book for like a year and a half, and it's good work, but it's just not, it rings so false. It's not what it needs to be. And so I went to her as my trusted editor and colleague and kind of master guru. And she agreed and said, yes, switch it up, do this. I think you'll find it to be, therapeutic and life-changing. And she was absolutely right. Writing a memoir has been the greatest thing ever for me. It's led to me being able to do all of this, which I'm about to talk about. So in April of 2023, I'm now feeling much better. And I've always been applying for jobs and gigs and all that. Like in our world, you're doing that all the time. So, but at this point, like I really seem to have more of a clear vision of what that future should look like and what I should at least be kind of focusing on, which for me is directing. I love directing. Oh my God, I love directing. I love performing and I miss performing, but oh God, I love directing. And it's something that even in my previous life as Landyn with an O and that male role, I was not always confident as an actor. I was a pretty good actor, but I knew where my limitations were and stuff too, primarily dance. I was not a good dancer. But directing, it was the one thing that I have always felt really good about. And so I was like, you know what? I really should focus on that. And that's exactly what I did. And I applied for several directing gigs. And lo and behold, in April of 2023, I'm hired to direct $1 Million Quartet, my first production of it. I had already worked on like 7 other productions, always wanting to direct it. This time I was going to get to put my own stamp on it, which I was thrilled with. So I got hired for that. And that was in Florida. And that was going to be then in August. And then in that month, I also applied to direct Legally Blonde at another theater. And by May of 2023, I found out, by the way, I keep saying 2023. This is all 2024. Like, hello, sorry, 2024. Okay, I was going to go back and edit, but I'm not going to because you'll understand. You'll be patient with me, I hope. So, yes, this is all 2024, by the way. I've totally forgot that we're already in 2025. So as I was making out this retrospective, I put 2023. So, sorry, forgive me. It's been a long night. So, yes, by May of 2024, I have lost a lot of weight. I'm feeling good about my life. I've been officially hired now to direct 2 shows later in that year. Everything about my life is really looking up, except we have a little family blow situation that happens in the midst of this, which was not good at all. And without getting into a lot of details, because that part I'm not really ready to talk about, I'll just say it really, it set me back a little bit there. And it put me in a precarious situation. But in the end, everything has, I think, worked out for the better. So we'll just say that I needed those shows to come through because, it was not good. But things turned out really good because then, we're going into the summer and now the professor is, has summer vacation and everything. And I kind of throw a wrench in the system and I go, oh, hey, I just saw there was a stage manager gig, equity stage manager gig in Connecticut. It's only 3 weeks. we could use the money. I could use the job. I really would love to do this. What do you think? And of course, that's just who the professor is. She said yes. She always says yes. She always supports everything I want to do. And she understood, I think, why I needed to do this. And I didn't even know at the time why I needed to, but it turned out to be one of the greatest things I ever did, because I immediately was hired. And I kind of knew that was going to happen if I got it. It was clear that they had lost someone, and this was, an emergency situation. And so I knew that if I was hired, I couldn't think about it, and I just had to react. And that's kind of what I needed to do to get the courage to go out there. And so before I'm really even out publicly, and I'm definitely not out publicly actually by this point at all, but like my inner family knows, obviously, and my hair is longer by this point, and by July, I'm now 7 months into my HRT journey. So I'm about to go across country, flying out of my hometown airport, across country for the first time ever. I don't have a driver's license that identifies my gender. My passport has obviously my, male name. And so I didn't necessarily think about all that, but I was like, well, fuck it. I'll deal with it. It is what it is. And this is going to have to happen at some point. And so in the end, everything went pretty well, actually. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about just how to, truly, be viewed as a woman by everyone. I feel like I'm quoting a line from Guffman, but I studied a lot, and I watched everything, and it was amazing. And I feel bad because a lot of those people maybe didn't know that I was doing that, although some of them do. And I was very open, by the way. Everyone knew, everyone, if they wanted to know. I didn't force feed it, but I was very open. And I, basically got my first, girlfriend while I was there. I have an amazing friend who is an actress, very talented, lives in New York, and she was amazing. And we got to be quite friendly because she was the equity deputy. I was the equity stage manager. And so we worked quite well together, and I just felt like I needed to be honest with her, and I told her, and it was so wonderful. And yeah, it was great. So I was leaving that experience really feeling quite high, knowing that then 2 weeks later, I was then going to turn around and fly down to Florida to then direct $1 Million Quartet, which is exactly what I did. And that was a dream. Oh my God. I mean, everything about that show and that experience was perfect. I could go on and on and on about it, but I mean, just everyone at the theater, everyone at the crew, my cast, my entire collaborative team, like my production stage manager, music director. Oh my God, my music director was phenomenal. It was just so good. I was so proud of it. I am so proud of it. I hope I get to direct $1 Million Quartet again, because I love that show with every fiber of my being. So it was just a remarkable experience. And it was great because I also got to reunite with a couple of people there that I had worked with and known previously. And again, I'm not necessarily out to everyone yet. And yet here I am, I'm getting to see people that I've known, and, kind of getting to know what it's like to come out, if you will. And so again, everything is going quite well. I get home in time for my 51st birthday, which was again my first birthday where I was able to be my authentic self. And so I celebrated by wearing a gorgeous purple dress. And I felt so beautiful, and it was such an amazing night, and I loved everything about it. My mother-in-law was there, my lovely wife, of course, my daughter, my daughter's boyfriend. It was phenomenal. I loved it. So by this point, August, 8 months HRT, I'm 51, but I feel like I'm 30. I've already directed one show, and, I have another show coming up. I've already worked, in 2 states, and I've flown, and everything's going great. And so I finally have perspective, and that perspective leads to me starting a little company called Transplendent Media, which is the producer of this podcast. And so by September, I'm laying down the seeds to kind of move forward with this, something that had, kind of basically been in plan. I'm someone who notes everything and takes memos, and, I'm always kind of dreaming and scheming, and I have so many titles. And so I had been kind of planning this for quite some time, and it was just a matter of me finally saying, like, yes, now's the time. My memoir's going well, and having a podcast could be a great, kind of, benefit, not a benefit. It could be a nice, so then I said, obviously having the podcast along with writing my memoir, like the two go quite nicely hand in hand. So I just thought now was the time. And so I started working on what the show would look like, and the title, and what the kind of format would be, and all of that, and talking with people, getting advice and insights, and, really doing my research. By the way, the biggest thing of the year kind of basically happened along with my birthday in that August, which was I publicly came out. Like, I told everyone and anyone on Facebook, family, everyone, that, I was born intersex, and that I've been in the midst of my transformation. And, I wasn't, too forward. I just basically said, hey, if you want to be a part of this, by all means. And if you don't, I totally get it. And that's where I am today still. And I must say the response has been overwhelming. And just a couple of days ago, I even saw a post from someone that I had previously kind of written off based on kind of maybe their postings up until that point, and what I kind of maybe was gleaning from them. And I was wrong. I predetermined what someone's thought and response was going to be. And so I've learned. I really have. And it's been wonderful. And so, again, to all of you that have reached out with words of encouragement and support and love, and you will never be able to know how much that means to me. And please don't stop doing it, because it's fueling me. It truly is. And so I'm very, very lucky. I see that, and I know that. And so really the, only bad month, if you will, out of this year, other than, that little hiccup in the spring, which wasn't, it was horrible, but it wasn't long lasting, was the election, unfortunately. Like, that was the only moment where I look at the year and I'm just like, oof, that was a rough one. That was hard. And it really took a lot to pick myself back up after that one, because I really felt deflated, and I still feel deflated. But yeah, that one was a rough one, especially because just, literally days before the election, and I should have maybe thought about this better, but I had just launched my podcast. I had already done, episode 1 had come out just a few days prior to the election. I interviewed Chad Beglin, and it was amazing. And I really was riding this wave of euphoria. I was checking my statistics, hourly, to see how many downloads we had, and to see what the buzz was and the interaction. And I had that kind of pride that I feel when I open a show, opening night, that kind of just, it's out there, it's done. And I still feel that. And I feel that each week, and it's amazing. It's definitely, for those of us that like performing and putting out, art and stories, it's addictive. I, as someone who loves, to use my platform and to use my talents, this is amazing, and this is a great vehicle for me. So I'm very, very fortunate and very lucky. And believe me, I know that. I do. This last year has been more than I ever could have imagined. And, in 1 year, I've gone through an amazing journey, and there's only more to come, I've gotten a perm, I've gotten fillers, and survived, having that done. I've bought wardrobe. I've been called ma'am and she and her and Landyn with a Y, and I've just gotten so much security and affirmation that I never thought I would ever have. And so there's no way for me to look back at this year as anything other than a huge success. So then as I look towards the future, my main fear is that I live in a country where many, many, many people hate people like me and want to literally see us go, don't want us to exist. And there's no other way to see that. I mean, I read what these people post. It's horrible, horrible stuff that no one should ever have to read. And so I know that's there, and it's going to be there. And I think knowing is half the battle. So how do I look forward to the future? Well, just when I was feeling really, really low, I had the most wonderful experience with someone, and if they're listening, they'll know. And it literally changed my entire mindset within like 24 hours. In other words, right before New Year's, literally right before New Year's, before I'm celebrating my 18-year anniversary, I started to just doubt everything. Not my gender, not this transformation. Please do not get me wrong there. I did not doubt that. I was just doubting the podcast. I was doubting me, basically what I thought, putting all my eggs in one basket. And I just didn't know what was going to happen. And then one call, literally, one little Zoom meeting. And that's the thing I love about life. You just never know, right? And so you just got to keep moving forward. And so as I look to 2025, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to be saying yes to as many things as I can. I'm putting my health first. I'm continuing to put myself first. The professor's doing the same thing. She looks fierce. She always looks fierce, but she looks fierce because, we both reached an age where we're like, oh shit, kind of want to keep this going. And so, yeah, we go for walks with our dog, and we're planning the future, and we're planning vacations, and it's all very, very exciting. And so now all I can hope for is that all continues. I hope that I continue to get gigs. I hope that I continue to work. If anything, I'd like to work even more. I would love to be in a position where I'm turning down stuff, honestly. Because I love working, and there were many years where I didn't do it. And so I feel like I need to catch up a bit. I can save it for another episode about where I imagine my life would be as far as my career by this point. And I'm not even close to being where I thought. But I also, just when I thought I was giving up on what I thought, I now see that I don't have to, and I now see more of a line to get there than I ever did before. So for that, I'm grateful. So the most I can hope for is this. I hope that all of you are okay. I mean that. I seriously mean that. I hope that we all manage to figure this out and to realize that there's actually more that we have in common than what we don't. And at least I hope that's the case. I think it is. I've seen a lot of humanity in the past year. I really have, personally, when I didn't think I was going to see that. So that's what's given me hope. Now I've seen a lot of ugliness too, but I think it was always there. It's just amplified more. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. So thank you for indulging me in this retrospective. I hope it might reach you in some way, inspire you, especially if you're someone who is either going through your own transformation, whether that be gender, whether that be from, being a married couple to a divorced couple or divorced person, or your parents are getting divorced, or you're transitioning from one career to another career, or you're transitioning from, income brackets. You're going from middle class to upper class. Everyone experiences transitions throughout their life. Everyone does. And it just so happens that in this case, my transition, which as we know, I call my transformation, is that I'm finally getting to be my real self. And let me tell you, this will be my little word of the wise to everyone in 2024. Being yourself, like truly being yourself, being able to be free to truly be yourself is fucking life-changing. Life-changing. I mean, the amount of energy I have now because I don't worry about all that other shit I used to have to worry about. Oh my God, I sleep better. My body moves better. I move through life better. I'm telling you, if you have a chance to be your authentic self, do it. It's not overrated. It's not overrated at all. Thank you. Happy New Year. And here's to a fucking amazing 2025. One of the things that I have absolutely loved about this past year is the fact that I have already spoken to Chad Beglin, Beowulf Borat, John McDaniel, Christy Cates, my choir teacher, and I have many other amazing guests and interviews lined up. So again, to someone who is a talker and to someone who has always been very curious, the ability to talk to these artists and these people has been just mind-blowing and has been the greatest thing ever for me. If you ask, especially my wife, most of the time when I, wax on about someone, famous or a celebrity or someone I want to meet, I always say, the first thing I always say is, I just want to sit down and talk with them. Like Neil Diamond, I just want to sit down and talk to Neil for a couple hours. I don't even need a photo. The thrill of being able to talk to these people, ask the questions that I've always wanted to ask, or know the information I've always wanted to know, has been the greatest part about this podcast so far. And so it's only right to share some of these greatest moments then with these people that I've been able to talk with and spend time with. So first up is Chad Beglin. And I wanted to share from Chad's interview, as you know, if you've listened to the show, I ask all the guests my famous 3 questions, if you will. Number 1, what do you have no fucks left? Number 2, what are you proud of? And number 3, do you have any pearls of wisdom or any lessons that you've learned that you want to pass on? And I asked that one specifically because I always feel like, again, if I only had one question I could ask everyone in the world that I always wanted to meet, I feel the best thing that we can do is pass on information or pass on lessons or pass on experiences. And so I thought it was really important to ask all of these people, like, is there someone in your own life that has given you this wisdom that, like, above everything else was the one thing that you constantly hang on to, and it's the one thing that maybe gets you through each day? And I know for me, I have, several of those that are applicable to different situations in my life. And they've changed too, obviously. The lessons change and evolve as you get older. And so I just thought that was a really important question. And I've loved, obviously, all the answers. But in Chad's interview, I specifically loved his. Here it is. What's your pearl of wisdom? And it can be big, it can be small. What's that pearl of wisdom that you just feel everyone in the world needs to know that you've learned?
Well, we talked about the show, The Rhythm Club, that failed. It was painful and awful. And, um, 2 years later, I was in New Line and I was pitching a movie to this movie executive, and I could tell it was not going well. His eyes were kind of glazing over, and then he said, "Your name sounds familiar." And I said, "Well, I also write musicals. I wrote this musical that didn't make it to Broadway called The Rhythm Club." And he said, "Stop." And he opens his desk drawer and he pulls out our demo from The Rhythm Club. And he goes, "I love this. I love this." And I was like, "Oh, great." And he's like, "We just did the stage version of Hairspray. Would you be willing? Would you be interested in doing a stage musical with us of The Wedding Singer?" I was like, "Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, that's my dream." And so I thought, wow, so you went through this horrible, terrible thing where everything collapsed, but maybe it was all just to get that demo CD in that guy's desk drawer.
Yeah.
So whenever I don't get what I want, I always try to remind myself, no, there's a reason. It seems terrible and it seems awful, but there's a bigger plan at work that I don't understand. And I don't, just when you don't get what you want, sometimes it's the best thing that can happen to you.
Yeah. It is funny. It does seem like most theater people and most artists in general, if you talk to them about religion or spirituality, they'll be like, I am, maybe whatever where they are. But most of us will say, but I do believe in fate and I do believe in timing and I do believe that everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And I think we have to kind of almost convince ourselves of that. We don't get this job. We're pissed. We're down and out. Everything's horrible. 6 months later, new job happens that leads to something else. And we go, oh, if I had done that first thing, this never would have happened. So
yeah, and I'm convinced that if Rhythm Club would have come into New York, gone to Broadway, it probably would have gotten killed anyway. So maybe it was all a blessing in disguise. So
My second guest was someone who I did actually have the opportunity to sit down with and, have a lunch and be able to kind of ask a lot of questions of, and that was John McDaniel. He was kind enough to meet up with me one time when he was close to where I was, and we met up, and I loved it. And so, of course, I wanted to talk to him on the podcast and stuff. And already knowing a lot about him and answering those questions that I had, I wanted to really know about his upbringing more and kind of like his backstory. And that's true of all my guests. Anyone that appears on the show, be prepared. I will ask you about your background because I feel like for me, I would rather your fans, listeners, people that want to learn about you, I would rather they know who you are versus me just kind of going through all your credits. I mean, obviously, I'm going to ask questions about your career and there'll be shows or highlights that I'm also intrigued by. But for the most part, I'm fascinated by like who these artists are and what shaped them and what influences came into their life. And so I was going down that path with John, of course, and never in a million years did I think he would then share with me this very personal and beautiful story about his upbringing and his early life. And so I knew instantly this was the clip I wanted to share. So enjoy.
And like, what was that early life like though? You're growing up and my take on, Missouri is that it's conservative and, there's a lot of churches and so, and I also, I know that you said you were very proud and have always been very open. So like, what was that early life like growing up, knowing that you're different from everyone else but did you ever feel trapped?
Great question. I was so lucky to be growing up in the 60s and 70s in St. Louis. I was not aware that I was living in a conservative place. My parents took us to a very liberal church, which has since become an open and affirming church. So it welcomes LGBTQ across the board, and always was very welcoming. I was in theater groups from the time I could walk, basically, and there were always other gay kids. I was so lucky at Kirkwood High School. I was in the choir and I was the star of the shows and I was the big theater guy. And I was relatively respected. I got called fag one time walking past the smoking area, but only once. And if you think about like, 3 years at a high school, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, to only be sort of bullied or singled out or tried to be made fun of once, that is
Yeah.
like, that's so lucky.
That's
I mean,
astounding.
it's astounding. And I also think it speaks to the time because it was a gentler time. We didn't have social media. We didn't have people ganging up on one another. It's a horrible world now that way. But then it was actually kind of sheltering,
Yeah.
as I found it. And because of the worlds the ponds I was swimming in with other kids,
Right.
doing
Yeah.
shows at other high schools, and um, it all I mean, I definitely didn't think everybody was gay or anything,
Right.
but it didn't seem like it didn't seem like a terrible thing at all. And it's never felt that way to me, I'm happy to say.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm guessing I somewhat know this, but your parents were very, very comforting and supportive. Like, how did that conversation go?
Completely. Well, so I think on some level they always knew, but once I got near high school, um, I'm trying to think what year I was. Probably eighth or ninth. Oh no, I don't get old. You can't remember details anymore.
I know, I know.
I used to know the details of this, but I was going out with this guy, and I was really, really, really happy and sharing a bit of my happiness. And I think they started to think, oh boy, this, because you love your kid and you want the best for your
Yeah.
kid. You don't want your kid to be living in a hostile world or anything that could be super challenging. So they said to me, we would like you to go and see a counselor and go visit with this really smart woman down at Barnes Hospital. And let's just have you, I don't remember the language they used, but
Yeah.
basically they just wanted to have me have an opportunity to check in with her. And so I went 6 weeks in a row. They were on Wednesday afternoons, 6 Wednesdays in a row. And I remember so clearly on the end of the sixth session, I think it was always going to be six, sort of like a diagnostic,
Yeah.
like, and at the end of the sixth session, she invited my parents to come in, and she said, well, your son is gay and he's very well adjusted and you're very lucky. And see you later, basically. Like,
Wow. Wow.
oh, I
Wow.
know it's crazy, right? And I mean, I was
Yeah.
lucky to have gotten checked out by someone who got it and who could see that I was comfortable and that I was happy. And just incredible in 1975. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
I know it's
Wow.
nuts, but it's true. And so that has always given me a lot of comfort. And just today I was FaceTiming with my parents who are now 93,
I
living in
know. Oh,
Connecticut. And mom is a little bit down dementia road, but she has good days. And today was one of them. So my sister FaceTimed with all four of us, and I'm going to cry, but it was really nice. And they are still very important to me.
Beowulf Borat was on my list from day one because I just think he is one of the most brilliant scenic designers in our industry. And I have been so fascinated by his work, and I was so tickled when I saw him in that I think it was a Microsoft Surface commercial, and it was they were featuring some of his renderings and his designs for Bronx Tale, and I was like, oh my God, I know him. And I didn't know him, obviously, we hadn't met yet, but I knew his work, and I thought that was so amazing. And so with Beowulf, I got to ask a lot of questions about design and things that I was really kind of desperate to know about. So that was a very nerdy kind of inside baseball interview. And I'm sorry for that, but I'd been waiting a long time for that. And one question that I was very not nervous to ask, but you never know how someone's going to answer. But I'm curious is, this idea that like, hey, if you could change anything on Broadway, if you had a magic wand and you could just, make things better, what would that be? What would that look like, to say the scenic designer who is, working nonstop, literally. But surely there's something that you would love to change about the industry if you could. And I just think that's exciting because who knows, maybe a conversation can then begin. And if you ask enough people what they would change and there's enough good ideas, then maybe change can happen. Who knows? Call me optimistic, but I just loved Beowulf's answer to this specific question. The whole interview, again, was phenomenal.
If you were in charge of Broadway and you could change anything tomorrow, anything at all, whether it be, like inside, baseball as far as the cost and things, I know you brought up the cost. What is like the one thing though you feel you would change most immediately that needs to happen for not only our art form, but just the future of Broadway and theater?
Oh man, it's twofold. If I could wave a magic wand, the cost thing is
Yeah.
is it's always been an issue on Broadway. It is absolutely strangling the industry right now. And there are shows that are doing just fine, but
Yeah.
it has made it so much harder and so much less fun. So if I could have everybody paid decently, and afford all the scenery I wanted, and the shows could still be successful, I would wave my magic wand, and that would be lovely. If I
Yeah.
could just make art without having to worry about the cost, it would be amazing.
Right.
Um, I I guess I also feel like there is, in an attempt to be more inclusive, which is valid and I value, there's an awful lot of like finger wagging on Broadway right now,
Hmm. Yeah.
that I think is just driving the audience away. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
pay $200 to be told how terrible they are. And there's a lot of that from a lot of different camps and a lot of
Agreed.
screaming about how it is the morally right thing to be doing. And I think that is also strangling the business.
Yep.
And which is not me saying I don't love the diversity of Broadway.
Sure.
I think my favorite show that I have seen that I was not attached to in some way since the pandemic was Jaja's African Hair Braiding.
Yeah.
I think Jocelyn Bioh is a brilliant writer. I've worked with her some and we're friends, but I've seen more of her work than I worked on. And I think she brilliantly takes the little irritations of life and blows them up to kind of theatrical proportions in a way
Right.
that is real. It's the way that you experience them as a person that
Yeah.
like this thing makes you crazy in the moment. But in fact, it's not really such a big deal. And being able to take that and make it theatrical and compelling is incredible. And I've seen her do it over and over again. And I thought that play did it brilliantly.
Yeah.
And so in a writing sense, I love that so much about it. But it also, as a theater goer, that's a world that I, as a straight white guy, could never experience. Like I could
Right.
walk into a hair braiding salon, but it would just like shut down. Like they were like, "What are you
Right.
doing?" It would not exist the way it actually exists. So
Yeah.
the only way for me to experience that is something like what Jocelyn did, where
Yeah.
I'm actually like getting to, and that is the magic of theater is
Agreed.
getting to see the world through somebody else's eyes, and it expands our humanity. I think it makes us more tolerant of other people because you're
Yeah.
seeing through their eyes, and that is theater at its best to me.
Agreed.
And so that show I keep holding up is like, this is what I wish Broadway
Yeah.
could be. I'm not saying I want every show to be that.
Sure.
Like, but I'm far more interested in that than I am interested in watching a show about straight white guys and problems with their co-op board.
Agreed. Yeah. No.
So but again, like if somebody brilliantly wrote a play about straight white guys and the problems with their co-op board, maybe I would find that interesting too. I mean,
Exactly.
Chekhov is basically that, and I think
Right.
he's brilliant. So it's anyway. I wish stuff was a little more, and it's not. I don't think everyone's striving for this. You want the humanity of the story to be exciting, and then I'm not sure that what it's about matters so much. And
Yeah.
there's so much emphasis on the what it's about and not how it's told,
Yeah.
to the detriment of the art, I think. But by the same token, as an artist, the push for diversity in the room makes the rooms much more interesting. I would much
Yep.
rather, the first time, and it really sort of came out of the Me Too movement, but the first time I worked on a show that was evenly split between men and women, just the tenor of the room changed radically,
I bet.
and for the better. And the same with ethnic or racial diversity. It's more interesting to get a more diverse group of opinions if you're all truly collaborating and listening to each other.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah.
Never in a million years did I think when I was starting this podcast that within the first, 7 or 8 episodes, I would be talking to my choir teacher. But that's exactly what happened. And I'm so glad that it did. Truly. It's been, again, one of the more amazing things to come out of this experience, because this is someone who, if you listen to the episode, means a lot to me, meant a lot to me then, means a lot to me now. So having her not only love and support as a friend and as a mentor and a teacher in my life, having her support on social media and connections, that's all wonderful. But this episode and having her on for the interview really cemented it for me. It was like the talk that I would have loved to have had, that I most likely would have had at, out to lunch or whatever. But she was so brave and kind enough to actually do it, via Zoom, and have me share it with the world. That means the world to me, because I don't think ever signed on when she was my choir teacher all those years ago to be like, oh, sure, I'll someday appear on your podcast where you tell the world that you're transforming into your authentic self, and I see you for the first time via computer screen. But sure enough, Mrs. Kaiser did that for me. And I only hope that all of you have someone in your life like Mrs. Kaiser, like I have in my life, because it makes everything quite beautiful. And I'm so fortunate and lucky that I have this amazing teacher in my life. And this answer in particular is really what put a huge smile to my face and just was everything I wanted and needed it to be. So I'd like to share that moment now. So back in high school, when I know you, I know I love theater. I know I love choir. I know I'm a pretty good singer. And all I know is that I am different. I'm not gay because I really am into women.
And
Too
that's
much
a
into
really
women.
interesting thing, because I thought about Bruce Jenner. I can't remember what she calls herself now.
Caitlin now.
I'm going,
Bruce
how
to
can
Caitlin,
this be? You were a guy and you were into women. Now you're a woman and you're still into women. So what are you, a trans lesbian? I don't get it. I mean, is that what it is?
Yes.
Really,
I identify as lesbian.
And
I
the thing
identify
is,
as lesbian.
why would anyone choose that life for themselves unless
you're
it
so
was
right.
authentic? Because when people say, oh, they're just trying to get attention, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You want to go through all of that stuff with the surgery and the sex changes and letting people know and maybe losing your family. You're not going to go through all that stuff just to get attention.
No.
Come on.
And even and you can attest to this too. Don't you think now, seeing me, my confidence, my energy is a million times different than when I was in high school, as far as just...
Here's what I want to tell you. I definitely see a brightness about you. But you have to remember that wouldn't want to necessarily compare it to high school. Because if you're in high school, you're not mature. You don't know where you're going or who you are. I definitely think you're a lot more open now.
Yes, I am.
And I think that's wonderful. But I wonder about, because I have good friends of mine, their son became their daughter. Didn't you have to mourn him before you can accept another person? Because it's a totally different person. They said, yes, we went through counseling together. And I have another friend whose daughter is now her son. And that to me is an even hard. I don't know why that's really hard for me to wrap myself around. And I loved, I'm going to say her when she was growing up. She would cuddle with me and he was my, sweetie. And I don't see her that often, him. And I try on Facebook to keep getting used to him but I still miss that other person.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that.
Like you're the same person though, to me.
I was literally
seem
gonna
like
say
you're the
to
same
you,
person. You don't seem like
yeah.
you're trying to act more female or no. You seem like you're the same person. And that makes it easy.
After I had a chance to interview and talk with Mrs. Kaiser, I knew on my, agenda and my schedule that the next person I was going to be talking to was also someone from my past. Now, this person didn't go nearly as far back as my choir teacher, obviously, but this was someone who, I worked with right before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. We hadn't met, but obviously I knew I was in the show. And I was diagnosed, on this day, and literally the next day I was starting rehearsals for this project with Christy Cates. And again, it was one of those things where had I not been in that show, had I not been with those people at that given time, given the news I had just received, I don't know what would have happened. Honestly, I don't. Me being in that show was the greatest thing that could have ever happened, knowing that the diagnosis, that I received came that day, and 24 hours later, I didn't really have to necessarily think about it because I was still going to be able to do what I loved. It was only until after that show closed that I was forced to kind of deal with it, and I did. So it was really neat knowing that I was going to get to connect with Christy again. I didn't know that it was going to have this kind of sense and this vibe. I didn't know I was going to end up, crying at the end of the episode at all. I really didn't. I didn't know it was going to bring us closer together than we ever were before. I mean, I now feel much closer to Christy, and I now feel much more confident in saying Christy Cates is my friend, whereas before I thought it was, I did a show with Christy Cates. Now I feel like Christy Cates is my friend, and that's a cool feeling. And I also got to learn a lot more about her. And this answer here in particular, I thought was really, was very revealing. It was very vulnerable of Christy, which I applaud, and I was so impressed with. But then I thought it was also important to share from an educational standpoint, because after all, Christy and I are both teachers. And so I just thought this answer was really amazing. It was quite brave. And I would have been remiss if I didn't share it with all of you. So this is in 2 parts, by the way. So you'll have her first answer, and then I just wanted to kind of give you just a little slice more. Again, in the vein of teaching, she kind of then talks after the first clip about some vocal issues and kind of like gives you a little PSA, which again, I felt I needed to share. So without any further ado, here's a clip from Christy's interview.
So obviously, I'm getting the sense now that, you're definitely prepared to go to New York. You've gone to an amazing university, CCM. You have great parents. You seem to have an amazing work ethic. So you get to New York. What was it that first just totally caught you off guard about the entire experience, that you were just like, oh my God, CCM didn't prepare me for this, or I've never experienced this. What do I do now? What was that? Do you remember what kind of that first thing was?
I think I do. And it was, again, given the nature of this show, what, I showed up in New York City, not looking my age.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
I was larger. I had very, very short hair, and I just looked like a soccer mom. Bless that. Like, bless soccer moms. I'm listen, I get it. But like, I didn't, for me, the going into auditions, like nothing about the way I looked matched the way I sounded or my
Sure.
age, anything. Do you know what I
Sure.
mean? So
Yeah.
for me, even though CCM was very harsh and they would be like, if you're not skinny, you're fat, you know, and like that sent me down my own freaking
Oh, I
spiral.
bet. I bet.
Like, you know, for me, and the other thing was too, was, you know, my agent would get comments like, well, she has the best voice we heard all day, but she can't act.
Oh,
So for me to first of all feel so, and look at who I'm speaking to, but like so out of place in my own body, like I was,
right.
and to be, and this continued, and I'm happy to like talk more about that, but like to have that, and then also be told that my acting is not good enough to get me to the next step.
Yeah.
I mean, it knocked me off any pedestal I'd put on myself, put myself on.
Right.
So, you know, I did, and that is, again, this is something I want to talk about a little later here with you, but like, because the industry is so much now more open to normal people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
But so much more than 1990.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Yes.
OMG.
Yes.
So, you know, you know, and I remember this casting director calling my agent once too, or not my agent, but a friend who was, I don't, maybe he was in casting, and saying, well, is she skinny Christy right now or fat Christy?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. Oh my God.
So for me, the thing that CCM didn't prepare me for was what a complete and total attack on my self-confidence in terms of the way that I looked.
So that being said, that leads me to this kind of like hypothetical, because thank goodness we don't have to worry about this, but had your career ended, or had your Broadway career ended after Wicked, would you have felt like, okay, yeah, this was great. It was a good run and I'm ready for whatever's next? Like, or did it make you hungry? Did it make you want it more now?
You know, when I came back to New York, I needed a good amount of time to decompress. And I think any alphabet would tell you that.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just, you need time to decompress from that.
Well, because you're living like a nun in a convent. You're not talking during the day. You're not doing
what
anything.
sucked was that I was fine for the first 6 months.
Right.
I have to steal. But like, then I sang through strep throat. So any singer out there, just a little PSA. If you have something like strep throat or tonsillitis and you've gone to your ENT and they're like, listen, your vocal cords are swollen, like no matter what, take some time.
Yeah.
Because one of the greatest regrets I have in my life, and I went on because it just happened to be a week that the creative team was there.
Yeah.
So I forced myself through it.
Oof.
And I fucked up my vocal cords. And until I had surgery for a vocal cord surgery for a totally different problem, but I lived with pre-nodular vocal cords from 2006 through 2012.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was so every day I was like, yee. But then I had a blood vessel come to the surface.
Right.
I had surgery, and when I was having that surgery, he removed the they never got hard, like it was never like hard nodule. But still, like,
were you fucking freaking getting that surgery?
I remember Dr. Sulika is his name. He's amazing. And just as I went under, he said, don't worry, you're not my first alphabet and you won't be my last.
Oh.
And then no retrospective. Did you dance? Did you sing? Retrospective? Word of the day. No retrospective would be complete of looking back at all these episodes, but you know, of 2024. If I didn't again share the answers of one of the, I think, more important questions, what do you currently have no fucks left about? I mean, I'd love to know. I'm sure our audience would love to know. And I've been surprised by the answers. I really have. I was even thinking that after I get more interviews out of the way, that could be a whole nother episode, is, you know, playing the little clips and bits of the answers that I was really surprised by. Out of all of them, I must admit, the one answer that really took me back that I will never forget is Chad's answer. And that's who we start with. And then we just kind of go in order. So you'll obviously hear the voice and you'll hear their answer. Just know that I've asked them, what do you currently have no fucks left about?
Do you find yourself at this point in your life, at this point in your career, kind of being like, I used to care about this, but I have no fucks left when it comes to X, Y, or Z? Is that true for you?
Yes, I have no fucks left whether or not I ever win a Tony Award.
Really?
I've been nominated.
Wow.
I'm just like, I was thinking about that when I read that question, and I was like, if my friends or my colleagues or my family thought any differently about me or my talent because I had a little statuette sitting on my mantle, I'd be really, really disappointed.
Right. As you know, again, the podcast is called No Fucks Left. So
Yes.
what, right now, John McDaniel, do you have no fucks left about?
Well, it has a lot to do with the Trumpers who are glowing at the moment.
Yeah.
Wearing the Trump clothing and flying the flags. A friend of mine was out on a boat this weekend and was feeling great. And then all of a sudden these boats came by with these, the name of him on the flags. And it's so revolting, but they're going to feel for a minute that they've won something.
Right.
They've won a big prize. Like they're getting their way. And they, talk to me in a year. I mean them, or 2 years. And I do think they'll have a chance to flip things around.
As you know, this podcast is No Fucks Left. So what do you, Beowulf Bort, have no fucks left about right now?
Oh man, you warned me that I would have to answer this. know that there's anything, to be honest. Like
wow.
And I get, this is why I say that. At least within the theater, when people are like, I don't care. I'm like, if you don't care, don't be here. Like, you need to care to be here and do this. And maybe I care too much about some of this stuff, but there's very little that I'm willing to say I don't give a fuck. It probably gets me twisted into knots too much. I very much want to say right now, I don't give a fuck about politics. Like, it is what it is. It's going to be a shit show for the next 4 years. I'm not going to watch the news, but I know that's not true. So,
I don't know how I overcame it. I think, I think the second two Broadway shows being after giving birth and your body totally changes, I don't know. I mean, I honestly think it's age. And I think that's one of the things I have no fucks to give
fucks
anymore.
left. Yeah, exactly.
I have no fucks left because I work out 4 to 5 times a week and we're talking like I'm burning 500 calories on my watch, right?
Right.
But like, my body is just I'm not supposed to, it's just not what it is. I'm not going back eating a protein bar and a can of tuna. Like, I'm not a cat. I'm not doing that.
Fucks left. No, I have no fucks, right? Oh, I have no fucks left. No, so fuck off. I'm busy. Bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't cry.
Well, friends, that's it. That is a wrap on this episode, and it's also a wrap on all the episodes of 2024. Now, yes, technically this episode is coming out in 2025, but let's just pretend that it's a wrap-up. It's a retrospective of 2024. And here's to an amazing future, one that I hope you're all going to be a part of. And how we do that? Well, we like, we subscribe, we follow, send us questions, follow us on all our different social media channels, and tell a million friends about us and have them tune in. I hope that you had an amazing new year and a holiday season, and I hope that your 2025 is everything you want it to be and more. And I hope that we all do much better together. And in order to do that, please remember to take care of yourself, take care of each other, and always lead with love. Take care. I'll see you next week.
Fucks left. No, so fuck
No
off.
Fucks
I'm
Left
busy,
is a presentation of Transplendent Media.
not sorry.
The podcast is hosted and created by Landyn Shaw. It is produced by AJ Luebbert. Graphic and logo design by Wally Spence. If you'd like to be a part of the show or get in contact with us, please visit us at our website at nofucksleftpod.com. That's nofucksleftpod.com. Thank you so much.